Covered or uncovered? So swapping out PAF covers or removing them altogether is a relatively easy mod, but it can have an outsized impact on the overall appearance of the guitar. And you can have anything from more shiny covers to more aged covers. And you can even forego the covers altogether, in this case exposing some double white bobbins, and there's many other possibilities as well. And so while it's fun to experiment with taking covers on and off to change the overall appearance of the guitar, you got me wondering, how much does it affect the overall sound of the guitar? And when we look at the history of the burst and the PAF pickups that came with them, the guitar legends that popularized those instruments also experimented with removing the PAF covers. Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page all reported a brighter and more aggressive sound when they removed the covers. So it really got me wondering, how much of a tone difference does it make when you remove the covers from a PAF style pickup? So in this video, I'll do several sound comparisons with the PAF covers on and off. I'll do both blind tests and non-blind tests. The results of the blind test will be at the end of the video. I'll also talk about why I decided to do this experiment and why I chose the pickup covers that I did. And I'll wrap up by sharing some of my observations around what differences I was perceiving, as well as whether or not I think an experiment like this is worth the trouble. So I'll start each sound comparison with a visual test where you can see whether I'm using the covered or uncovered pickup, and then I'll wrap up each section with a blind test, because sometimes our minds can start playing tricks on us where we start listening with our eyes rather than our ears. I'll post the answers to the blind test at the end of the video, so let me know how you did and what differences you could hear. So up first, let's check out some clean tones in the neck position. So why did I decide to do this test? As I mentioned at the beginning, I think changing the pickup covers can really change the overall appearance of a guitar. And I find the more appealing the appearance of the guitar is, the more likely you are to want to pick it up and play it. And while I've always loved the exposed white bobbins on my Gil Yaron, I was always curious what it would look like with covers. And so I started to lay out some different options and mocking up what it would look like with the covers on, both covers off, neck cover on only. And I was intrigued with the look of both covers on, so I decided to give it a shot. So up next, I'm gonna switch to the middle position and kick on some light overdrive with my Vemoram Jan Ray. And in terms of the covers themselves, I had two options I was choosing between. Gil ships his guitars with his own covers as an option. They came uninstalled. And then I had a set of the throwback replica covers as well. And so when it came to choosing between these two options, it really came down to two factors. One was vintage accuracy, and two was simply which one did I like the look of better. And when it comes to vintage accuracy, the throwbacks have a reputation for being as close to the original PAF covers as any other option on the market today. So that means they're nickel plated, they're very thin, they have all the right curvatures and rounding in the corners. They even have the right dimpling on the screw holes. These are the aged options, so they have a slight patina on them as well as some string shadowing. And when I compare these to my genuine 1961 PAFs on my 335, they look very similar. Now, I don't have the specs on Gil's covers, but they do strike me as a high quality, and knowing his reputation, he's gone through all the necessary lengths to ensure that they are vintage accurate in terms of materials as well. Some of the differences I noticed between the two covers is the throwback is a little shinier, Gil's is more patinaed. The throwback covers have a little bit more of the curvatures and dimpling that you see on the vintage examples, and the string shadowing is a little more pronounced on Gil's. I really love the look of both sets. They're both great options, but I ultimately chose the throwbacks simply due to the fact that they were a little shinier, which matched the rest of the hardware on my guitar a little bit more closely. So let me know which one of these you would have picked, and if there's any other high quality PAF cover replicas out there on the market that you would recommend. So up next, let's go to the bridge position, and I'll kick on some medium overdrive using my Analog Man King of Tone. So one thing I found a bit tricky in the process was measuring the pickup heights before and after the covers are added. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can measure from the top of the bobbin to the string, or you can measure from the pole pieces to the string. However, if you're measuring from the bobbin, then you need to account for the thickness of the cover itself. And if you measure from the pole pieces, what ends up happening is most of the pole pieces no longer stand out above the holes in the cover. So then you can't take the measurement once you add it. So you end up in a tricky situation where hopefully one of the pole pieces does protrude above the top of the cover and you took that measurement beforehand, so therefore you've got an accurate reference. So I think invariably there's just some level of imprecision to this that makes it tricky to know, are you hearing the difference in the cover? Or are you hearing a very subtle difference in the pickup heights? And then there's the factor of the pole pieces, which many folks readjust the pole pieces to be flush or protruding from the cover. And whether or not that affects the sound as well is another variable. So I'd be curious to know how you approach this. And also if you've noticed any change in tone by adjusting the pole pieces and whether or not that can compensate from some of the effect of adding the cover. Let me know what your experience has been. So let's stay in the bridge position and go to a higher gain setting and see if we can hear any differences in that context. I'll be using my Vemorem Janray boosted by my BK Butler tube driver. So what were my overall observations, and did I think the experiment was worth the trouble? So in the room, the guitar did feel and sound ever so slightly different to me. I most noticed it on the pick attack, which seemed a little warmer and a little more gooey, for lack of a better term, whereas the uncovered pickups had a little bit more of a direct feel in the attack. However, when I listened back to all of the sound tests, the differences were less obvious to me. I honestly don't know if I would even pass the blind A/B test. I think the visual A/B test, my bias went to the conventional wisdom. When I saw the covers, they sounded a little warmer to me. When I saw the exposed bobbins, it sounded a little brighter to me. But I don't know how much of that was just in my mind, because again, when I went to the blind tests, I found myself really struggling to hear which one was which. But let me know if you could hear any differences and what your preference was. And appearance-wise, I ended up preferring the way the guitar looked with the double whites exposed. Even though I mocked up what it would look like with the covers on, and it looked really intriguing to me, when it was fully implemented, I just didn't like it as much. And so I almost instantaneously removed the bridge pickup. I've been experimenting with one cover on, one cover off. And I think that looks cool. It's got a little bit of that Jimmy Page look. However, I wouldn't be surprised if I yanked that neck cover off in the near future. And so before I reveal the answers to the blind comparisons at the end of the video, let's finish out the rest of the intro music where I'm comparing the uncovered and covered sounds in the context of a mix. So really curious if you could hear any differences in the context of that track, and if you had any preference, let me know. In the meantime, here's the answers to the blind shootout. Let me know how you did in the comments below, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.